We're going live. I'd like to call the Comox Valley Regional District Board meeting of Tuesday, March 9th, 2021 to order. We're gathered on the traditional unceded territory, the Comox First Nation. And today I'll read from Article 27 of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. States shall establish and implement in conjunction with Indigenous peoples concerned, a fair, independent, impartial, open, and transparent process giving due recognition to Indigenous peoples' laws, traditions, customs, and land tenure systems, to recognize and adjudicate the rights of Indigenous peoples pertaining to their lands, territories, and resources, including those which were traditionally owned or otherwise occupied or used. Indigenous people shall have the right to participate in this process. Oh, and I actually forgot to just recognize who is here in the boardroom and who's online. So today in the boardroom, we have Director Hillian, Morin, Arbor, and Grieve. And online, we have Director Hamir, Grant, Swift, Cole-Hamilton, and McCullum. And we have no in-camera portion today. And so we're on to item C, adoption of minutes from February 23rd. Thank you, Director Hillian.
Second.
Director Cole-Hamilton, thank you. Any discussion on those minutes? Anyone opposed to adoption? Hearing and seeing none, that is carried. And we're on to petitions and delegations. The first delegation is Comox Valley Community Health Network.
Move receipt.
Second.
Thank you, McCullum and Cole-Hamilton. And I believe we have Lindsay McGinn.
Yes, hi.
Hi, Lindsay. Welcome.
Thank you. So thank you so much for having us here today. I just also wanted to share that I'm being joined here by my colleagues from Island Health. So Annalisa Blake is also here, and Annalisa is the project manager for food security, healthy lifestyles, and community health networks, as well as Dr. Charmaine Enns, who is the medical health officer for the North Island. So for simplicity's sake, I'm going to do the presentation today over Zoom, but then at the end, if there's questions that you want to direct at Annalisa or Dr. Enns, that'd be great. Can everyone, is my sound okay? Sometimes it gets wonky. Somebody wave at me.
It's a little bit choppy.
Is it choppy? I'm going to put my headphones in. One sec.
Thanks, we appreciate it.
Is that better?
Can you speak again?
Can people hear me now?
It's still choppy, unfortunately.
Okay.
If I stop moving, does that work?
Now it's really quiet. Can you
Hello?
try again, Lindsay?
Better?
No, we can barely hear you now. It's not choppy, but it's just really faint.
We can't hear you at all now.
Maybe phone in.
Are you still there, Lindsay?
You're muted though.
How about now?
Yes. Hooray.
I'm going to try not to move. Of course, I've been on Zoom all day without issue. Only when I'm live on YouTube.
That's great now. You're
Okay.
coming in strong.
Wonderful. So before Scott Smith left the regional district, he recommended that we come and make a presentation to the board as the first of our first 3-year contract is coming to an end on March 31st. So we're here today just to provide an update on the health network over the last few years. Can I have the next slide, please? So the vision of the Community Health Network is that the Comox Valley is a connected community of thriving people and places promoting health and wellness so all generations flourish. Can I have the next slide, please? So we get a lot of questions about what the health network does. And one of the people in our coordinating circle came up with this short little sort of elevator pitch that I think helps to start explain what it is that we do. So basically, the network is not a group that takes on projects, as that would quickly drain our capacity. We are a group of people that holds a vision of where we can be heading in the Comox Valley to address the social determinants of health while looking at upstream root causes. We collaborate with and support groups that work to address the social determinants of health, not with reactive solutions, but with thoughtful analysis. Can I have the next slide, please? So these are the network social determinants of health that we are working to address in the Comox Valley. And the social determinants of health are all those things that you either have access to or you don't that affects your health or the health of our community that are outside of the healthcare system. So we work on initiatives that seek to shape policies and practices outside of the healthcare system in order to promote health and health equity. Can I have the next slide, please? So this is an infographic of the Community Health Network that we recently had created. And I thought it just might be the easiest way to sort of catch everyone up on what we've been doing over the last 4 years and show the kinds of things that we've been working on. So at the center of this diagram, you can see our coordinating circle. There was considerable work done in the first year of the contract to ensure that we really recruited a diverse group of people to sit on our coordinating circle. The coordinating circle can be anywhere from 12 to 20 people. We've gone as high as 21 at one point, but we're currently at about 10 people sitting on the circle. We did not recruit anyone in 2020 for obvious COVID reasons, but we will be doing a small recruitment this year. So these folks are volunteers. There's one part-time paid staff person, that's me. Some people are able to participate in the coordinating circle as a part of their job, but there are others who are volunteering their time to be there. So within the coordinating circle, we have a number of groups. We moved last year from a co-chair structure to a leadership team, which consists of 4 people from the coordinating circle. We have a community engagement working group that focuses on our communication, so things like our newsletter, our website, and our social media. Our community conversations, our public events when we can have those again. And the work we are hoping to do in the community around justice, inclusion, diversity, and equity is also housed within our community engagement working group. And then we have a network development working group that focuses on the internal policies and guidelines for the network. They handle both external and internal learning and training opportunities, recruitment, our action planning, and our recognition. So there are a number of projects and initiatives that we are involved with, either myself or someone from the coordinating circle, and we're there representing the Community Health Network. And so those are those little green bubbles outside of the coordinating circle. And they are the Airshed Roundtable, the Active Transportation Committee, and the City of Courtenay's official community plan. At the bottom of the diagram above the hands, you can see our community priorities. So these priorities were selected and developed by members of the community at our forums that took place when the network was starting up. One comment that we heard a lot when the network was forming was the idea that people in our community did not want to see a duplication of work or structures. We knew that there was already a lot of good work happening in the community, and we wanted to find a way to support that. So what we've done is to partner with those organizations and groups in our community that are already working in our priority areas. So you can see the purple bubbles to the left-hand side of the screen that shows our partners, and they are the Pride Society of the Comox Valley, the Coalition to End Homelessness, the Social Planning Society, the Food Policy Council, Children and Youth Matter, and the Early Years Collaborative. Then there are a number of different projects that we have joined in with our partners on. So at the bottom for the Early Years Collaborative, we've been working with them on their Childcare Planning Committee and their Building Connections for Valley Families project. So the Childcare Committee is working on bringing more childcare spaces to the Valley as per the recommendations in your Childcare Action Plan that was developed in 2019. The Building Connections for Valley Family Projects is working to strengthen community supports for families in the Valley with children 6 years and under to increase their ability to meet age-appropriate developmental expectations within a number of domains. Our work with Children and Youth Matter Comox Valley focused a lot on helping the John Howard Society put in a strong application to bring Foundry to the Comox Valley. Foundry is a model of care that brings a multitude of programs and services together in one place to address youth mental health. And we were very excited when we learned that the Comox Valley had been selected for Foundry. We're also a member of the Foundry Advisory. Our work with the Social Planning Society has included working with our local accessibility committee to help it find some supports. So we know that organizations and groups are more successful when they have paid support. And we were very grateful when the Social Planning Society agreed, in theory, to provide some structure and governance for this group. We are hopeful that in the next few years, we will see this group really get the funding and support that they need. And we're committed to the work of the Accessibility Committee in our community. We've been working with both our partners at the Coalition and Social Planning to help support the work of the Poverty Assessment and Reduction Plan. And as the Community Engagement Plan is rolling out, we have taken the initiative to organize a number of self-guided conversations with our partners. And finally, we recently worked with the Coalition and Glacier View Lodge on their Affordable Housing for Seniors project. So we have the concept report now, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done if that project is going to be turned into reality. Finally, on the right-hand side of the screen, we have what we call our action teams. So these action teams were started either because there was no pre-existing coalition or collaborative working in this priority area, or because we were invited to grow the mandate of an existing group to provide a regional lens. So the first action team we started was the Seniors Wellness Team. And the idea here was that there are a number of really strong organizations and groups in the Valley that are working to address issues around seniors wellness, but there was no one group or agency sort of bringing them all together to work collaboratively. Unfortunately, this work has currently been paused due to COVID. It became really apparent that starting a new group and building the kinds of trusted relationships that this work required is just really hard to do over Zoom. And finally, we continue to work on our substance use strategy for the Comox Valley. This was an existing group that was supported by the City of Courtenay. The Health Network was approached by the city to help grow the mandate and complete a strategy for the Valley. That work is well underway. We've had a few setbacks, but we're now on track to complete phase 1 this summer. And in our work with the substance use strategy, we have been able to partner with the Walk With Me project at the Comox Valley Art Gallery. And there should be we need another new bubble here for the community action team, who's also been working with us on the development of this strategy. Next slide. So that's it for me. I just really wanted to express our gratitude for the regional district staff, both Scott Smith and Alana Mullally, who have provided our network with so much support over the years. And I also would like to thank personally Director Hamir, who sits on our coordinating circle and whose support to this work has been very inspiring and helpful. And we really look forward to the next 3 years. Thanks.
Great. Thanks so much, Lindsay. I'm glad your technology worked out there.
Me too.
And we do have some questions. Director Hillian.
Thanks very much, Chair. And thanks, Lindsay, for the presentation. Very, very pleased to see all the links in the network. And I'm actually wondering if it's possible to get a copy of that diagram with all the bubbles. I haven't been able to find it on your website.
Yes, it's brand new. You're seeing it first. So I will send that around for sure.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because from time to time, myself and probably other directors get mail from people who are really not aware of all the amazing things that are happening in this community through the work of all the good people in the organizations, much of it funded by local government and supported by local government. So I think it's a really helpful diagram to share. Thank you.
Thanks. Director Morin.
Great, thank you, Chair. You had mentioned that many of your members are paid, folks who are working in the field, and then some volunteers. And I just wondered, in the spirit of equity, I know many committees now are involving folks with lived experience or people who don't do this work as their livelihood. And I wondered if there was a way that you've been compensating those folks, whether it's with honorariums or support with childcare costs or anything like that, to have broad representation.
Yep, I can answer that. So we have been providing, we cover care costs as well as travel costs for coordinating circle members when we used to travel to meetings. And we have just recently revised our guidelines in order to provide honorariums for some members to participate, because it has been brought forward as a value. So that will be starting this year, where individuals on the coordinating circle are able to self-identify for that assistance if they need it. And then, of course, for the work that we do, specifically right now with the substance use strategy, we have also developed some guidelines around peer support. So ensuring that we have peers, people with living experience of substance use, both on the larger committee as well as on the smaller working group, and that they would be compensated for their expertise.
Great, thank you.
Next, we have Director Hamir.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Lindsay. Great presentation. And I have to say how inspiring it has been for me to sit on the coordinating circle and just see how much is happening in the community. I don't know if people realize just the importance of networking and information sharing, and how like the ethics and the ideals of the network have really supported a lot of innovation and kind of new ways of doing things. And I wonder, Lindsay, if you could talk about a little bit of some of the outreach with some of the Zoom calls you did over the summer with COVID happening, and just trying to reach out to people and hear their stories, and also maybe a little bit more on your equity and diversity work that's coming up.
Sure. Yeah, so when COVID hit, I guess is a way, when it rolled in, the network, the coordinating circle really did sit back and think about what we could do in response to COVID, and what became clear as the pandemic was rolling out was there were these after action reports that were being created by many organizations, larger organizations and groups. So, within the regional district and within Island Health. And, we sort of had the idea that how were the voices of regular folks, or maybe folks more severely impacted by the crisis, being included and heard in that sort of after action thinking, and how are we going to ensure that those people who were being the most impacted were heard from. So we organized a series of conversations that were facilitated by an organization called New Stories, that were really focused on conversation and relationship building, and less of a question and answer and fill in the blank and survey type response. So we held 2 of them. They were really well attended. We were able to use a graphic recorder, and we have 2 great reports that came out of that. And what that has brought about is actually other communities have heard about the conversations. Oceanside has had had a conversation in their community using our same facilitators. Hornby Island had one last weekend, which I don't know if that report's going to be public, but I hope it is, because I really think there's some unique experiences that smaller remote communities have gone through. And now we're doing some targeted conversations we did one with youth. We're doing one with caregivers of small children. And actually what's come about is in response to the letter to the community that Mackay Sharp wrote about his experiences of discrimination in the Comox Valley. We're also going to be doing a conversation specifically for queer youth in our community, which they will co-develop and facilitate. So we're getting all this great information. The next thing is what to do with it. You know, we've been gifted all of these stories and experiences, and we want to make sure that we do something thoughtful and helpful to action some of those recommendations. And was there another point, Director Hamir?
Well, you kind of alluded to it with Mackay.
Oh, yeah.
Like the equity, diversity.
Yeah, there's a real desire within the coordinating circle to do some work around diversity, equity. Well, they're calling it JEDI, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. We don't like acronyms at the network, but JEDI seems to be sticking. There's so much great work happening in the community, you know, specific training that's being offered around anti-racism. We have strong organizations like Immigrant Welcome and Community Justice, but this idea of networking those groups together to have a more coordinated response and try and sort of create and change a culture around oppression in our community. So we're very hopeful that that's some of the work that we're going to be doing in the next year or two to try and, you know, bring some of that great work together.
Thanks so much. I do have a second question, but I'll let the other directors go first, and I'll put myself back in line. Thanks.
Okay, Director Cole-Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Lindsay. And Lindsay, I just wanted to say that you know, the work that the Community Health Network does is remarkable. It's been wonderful over the last year and a half to be working with you with the what used to be the Courtenay-based community drug strategy. Found itself limited both geographically and in terms of its scope. And we kind of went through a reimagining ourselves process and decided to wind ourselves down after sort of ensuring that we would be able to work with the Community Health Network to be reborn as kind of a larger region-wide entity. And I think it's fair to say that without the Community Health Network, that just simply wouldn't have been possible. And now, you know, after many, many years of that organization existing, there actually is now a regional substance use strategy coming into place. So it's, you know, from my personal experience, the Community Health Network was indispensable. So anyway, it's been a pleasure. So thank you for all of your help over the last year and a half.
Thank you, Will. Director Cole-Hamilton, sorry.
And back to you, Director Hamir.
Great, thanks. I'm going to come back to, again, like your conversations and some of the stories that you gathered, because I know for me as an elected official, hearing those stories really helped with our prioritization, you know, in our strategic planning. At least when I was coming to the table, I had some of that information. And for example, I know I used our parks quite a lot with my family during COVID as my kids were going stir crazy. You know, we were in Seal Bay Park a lot, but it was so interesting to hear how many other families were doing the exact same thing. And that sort of led to my understanding of how important our trails and our park systems were as a public area that was safe. And, you know, I continue to push for our parks to really bring online more trails so that, you know, we've got all of this space. And I would love to see more of that interaction between those stories and that information that the network holds and some of the policies that are coming out of the regional district. I think you've got some really fantastic, obviously, fingers in the community and potential to do some outreach that we don't get to do. Like we have some very strict ways that we do our outreach. So I'm wondering, I don't know, maybe a question to you, Lindsay, and then it's also going to be a question to staff. Lindsay, how do you see how could the board interact more with some of your findings? And then also to staff, maybe to consider how can we integrate some more of the information that the health network has when we're building our policies and strategic planning. So maybe first to you, Lindsay.
Sure. I mean, we have this idea.
Oh, Lindsay, you froze. Maybe you could ask the question of staff then, Director Vermeer, while she's getting back online.
Well, I can reply to that, and thank you very much for the question. I think the links that we have through our staff to
Findings, the e-civic recommendations.
Oops.
Want to go to Lindsay?
Are you there, Lindsay?
Yeah, just to say that by having the commitment of our staff being a part of this and having the reporting out and having Director Hamir as a representative is the means by which we can bring forward to the board the considerations that are relevant to your strategic planning process. And we'll be sure to work with you, Director Hamir, to bring that forward as part of the process this fall when the board meets again.
So maybe then, and sorry, I see Lindsay, you're back online, but maybe we can consider, Lindsay's here maybe once a year or, once every few years. If we could have some more regular reporting from the health network, I don't mind bringing that forward as, either a quarterly or twice a year report for the board to just hear what's happening at the network and potentially ask questions of some of the information we're gathering. So I'll leave that there. And sorry, you're unmuted and you're unstuck, Lindsay, so go ahead.
Well, just I would mention, yeah, we do. I'm happy to work in any way that makes sense, but we do also provide a quarterly report to staff at the regional district as well as Island Health about the network. So maybe there's a way there to make it a bit more digestible. It sort of is in Excel format and not super exciting, but maybe that's a way to share information more regularly.
Thank you.
We have another question in the boardroom, Director Hillian.
Thank you, Chair. I just note we have two representatives of Island Health on, and I wondered if they wanted to add anything that might be helpful for the board regarding their thoughts on the effectiveness of the health network.
Thank you. We'll open the floor to them. Annalisa or Charmaine?
And if not, that's fine too.
I'm looking for Annalisa. Is she here?
I am here, Charmaine. Did you want to speak?
Go ahead, Annalisa.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say, I mean, we are so pleased with the progress of the Comox Valley Health Network over these past 3 years. I don't think we could have envisioned the level of impact and reach that they've had, and sort of managing to hold a really a broad sort of range of goals and this broad vision, and actually linking it on the ground to a lot of very concrete work. So I can't say enough about how valuable their work has been toward progress around the social determinants of health and modifiable risk factors for the Comox Valley. And I'll pass to Charmaine if she wants to add anything.
Thank you, and thanks for the question, Director Hillian, because I have a lot of gratitude for this, both to the Community Health Network and Lindsay, because I think, and the community health work made up of all of the parts and people has demonstrated a level of maturity that is, what wasn't expected at this stage of the game. It's a very mature and progressive group, which is very, very encouraging and such an asset to the residents and members of the Comox Valley. And also a gratitude to the regional district for your support and your participation, which makes it such a healthy network. So that's what I'd like to contribute.
Thanks so very much.
Thank you. And we do have another question from the boardroom, Director Grave.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for this presentation. It's great to see how far it's come. I remember when there was the Mayor's Task Force on Homelessness and the Social Planning Committee, and that was about it. So we've come an awful long way. But it begs asking, you talk about equity and you talk about diversity, and yet I see so few men involved. And with men's issues so prominent right now, especially in the overdose crisis, that and the ensuing suicides and whatever. I mean, it's predominantly, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's predominantly young men that are suffering from this. So I'm just wondering if there's any group out there that can be included that actually deal with men's health issues.
Yeah, that's such a great point, and one that I certainly see as I go through my work in the Valley in these areas of these social issues. It does seem to be often dominated by women. I can tell you we are very fortunate to have members of our coordinating circle who identify as male, and it's something that's always in our mind, and certainly when we go out to recruitment, that we're actually being, we're looking to ensure that inclusion from a variety of identities within the coordinating circle. And so there is an effort being made to make sure that there is broad representation across our coordinating circle. I am not currently aware of a men's health organization, but if there is one, I would very much like to be made aware of them, because I agree with you. Certainly within the overdose crisis, suicide, mental health, you know, men are disproportionately feeling the effects of that, and that's, you know, rooted in a lot of different places.
Great, thanks so much, Lindsay. I don't see any further questions. So anyone opposed to receipt? Hearing and seeing them, that's carried. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for your presentation, and thanks to Annalisa and Charmaine for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we are moving on to reports, and the first report is the Comox Valley Transit Management Advisory Committee minutes from February 17th. Lauren and Hillian, thank you. Anyone opposed to receipt of those minutes? Oh, Director Arbor, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to make a comment that it's really nice to see what staff on the transit side is considering and looking down the road past the delays of COVID, because that put our transit future plan on hold. But it's nice to see both the response and also looking down the road. I thought this would be the best moment to just give a heads up to the board that I'll be working on a letter, perhaps for our next meeting, discussing the effort that I'm doing with Scott McLean from the Regional District of Nanaimo to try to provide transit from Campbell River to Victoria. And I understand from staff that with the TIPS process upcoming, it'd be good to get some of those thoughts in front of the board. It is part of our Transit Future Plan 2014, but I think I'll make an effort to see if our board is supportive for us to have a closer look. It's not in those minutes. It's not anywhere, actually. What triggered it, so you know, is I was a bit, today the Ministry of Transportation announced $10 million for the private bus operators. And to me, the opportunity to utilize buses that are already on the road from Campbell River to Victoria is probably long-term a better or alternative solution that is that could be appealing. I've already heard from a couple of MLAs that have taken on to the concept. So just a heads up on that. But thanks to staff for the ongoing work on transit.
Thank you for those comments. And Director Cole-Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask about just a quick question about one item on there, which I was quite curious about, the transit infrastructure study. It sounds like it's BC Transit working with Urban Systems on producing that. And I can see that it's going to be presented to the board and council at some point in the coming months. So just wondering if staff could give us a little bit of information about what's going to be contained in that study.
The study will look at those things that are hard surface or built forms that will help and assist in transit, whether it is upgrading of the bus stops, whether it is dedicated lanes on roadways, those types of things. So without giving you the specifics of those are the types of things that will be considered and brought forward for best utilizing the bus system and making it a preferred choice.
Great, thank you, Russell.
Any further comments on transit management minutes? And it's a vote of the full board. Anyone opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. We're on to item 2, the Comox Valley Emergency Program minutes from February 18th. Any comments? Director Hillian and Grieve, thank you. And it's voted the full board. Anyone opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And we're on to item 3, the Comox Valley Sewage Commission minutes from February 23rd.
Move minutes.
Second.
Thank you, Director Grieve and Cole Hamilton. Any comments? Anyone opposed to receipt of the minutes? Seeing none, that's carried. And we're on to item 4, the Water Committee minutes from February 23rd.
Move receipt.
Thank you, Moran and Cole Hamilton. Any comments on those minutes? And again, it's the vote of the full board. Anyone opposed to receipt? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried. We're on to item 5, the Road to 2030, the Climate Action Challenge.
Second.
Director Hillian and Hamir, thank you.
And Madam Chair, Daphne Mazarura is here, our policy and planning analyst, to present this report to you and outline the program and answer any of your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Through the chair to the board of directors. I will be providing a brief presentation on the Road to 2030 Comox Valley Climate Action Challenge. So the challenge is a competition that aims to catalyze community-led climate action. And this is a result of direction by the board to use the remaining amounts from carbon offsets purchased in 2019 to create a community granting program. So we are launching this as the Road to 2030 Climate Action Challenge, and we aim to encourage community members, individuals, nonprofits to apply with their project ideas and show and demonstrate greenhouse gas emission reductions. And through this demonstration, we would hope to see opportunity to help the community reach our targets of our midterm greenhouse gas emissions of 50% by 2030. This is why it was called the Road to 2030 Climate Action Challenge. So 27,000 is available for the winning submissions, and that can either be split between one identified winner or up to three groups who are selected. The remaining, we also retained a consultant, greenhouse gas accounting, for this project, and 4,000 of the initial $31,170 was used for the consultant. The competition design came about by help with the consultant, as well as the creation of an advisory group that was represented by staff members from various groups from various departments at the CVRD. So the challenge areas will include renewable energy, transportation, solid waste management, food, water management, and sequestration. We are, as I mentioned earlier on, opening up this competition to community members, individuals, nonprofits, and small businesses within the community. Eligibility requirements would be greenhouse gas impact, community impact, and what are the co-benefits that could arise out of this, out of the greenhouse gas reductions, feasibility, scalability, and durability. So just to provide a snapshot of the project timeline, we are now in, we've completed the first phase of the project, which was the webpage launch and the news release. We are still in the process of information dissemination. On Friday, we will have a virtual online information session through Zoom. And in April, we will have a capacity building workshop, and the winner will be announced in June. What is also here to one of the benefits of this project, what makes it unique, is the information session and capacity building workshop, because although members or community members might not apply, they are welcome to the information session and capacity building session, which will encourage dialogue about climate action, local climate action, provide education, and provide an opportunity for various community members to share ideas and to learn about greenhouse gas emission reductions at various scales, individual and within their organizations. We are also really excited about this project because it just provides a unique opportunity to connect various community members. We will have a selection committee, which will include youth. So we are still in the process of engaging with youth, but we will have youth who will be engaged within as selection committee members. And this is very important because youth have had a very bold voice in climate action. And we feel that this would provide some meaningful engagement into the decision-making of climate action. And also it will provide them an opportunity for mentorship, as the three other selection committee members are community members who are considered climate action or environmental champions within this community. So we are really looking forward to that. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. I think we do have questions online. Director Hamir?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to staff for this. Really exciting to see this. I know it created quite some splash on social media. So a couple of questions. I'm wondering if staff have already started receiving inquiries. And second question is just wondering if you've reached out to the Comox Youth Climate Council, which is a fairly new council, but is very committed to climate work. So.
Through the chair to the board of directors. Yes, thank you. We have reached out to the school district, and we've also identified some youth organizations involved in climate action. We are still in the process of identifying the selection committee members. There's also the opportunity for youth to be involved as applicants as well. So that is definitely in the process and part of our social engagement plan and engagement plan.
Great, thanks.
Next, we have Director Hillian.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks very much to staff for the report. I think it's a great project, great way to engage the community. And I am wondering if we know of somebody who we think would be a good person to be on the selection committee, can we nominate them or encourage them to apply? Or have you already kind of got the people, the 3 people that you want figured out?
Yeah, through the, sorry, through the chair to the board of directors. Yes, thank you. We have identified selection committee members already.
Are we allowed to know who they are?
I think I can go ahead, right, Alana? Yeah, they do know, and we have Tim Ennis, we have Megan Carsons, and we also have Serena Allison. She's also part of the school district. She's a teacher for environmental studies.
No, that sounds great. 2 out of 3, I know. I'm just wondering if you're planning any other opportunities where people might be able to get engaged in this type of a process, not necessarily on a selection committee, but just around the dialogue that can take place spurred by a process such as this. I think we have a lot of people in the community who would welcome the opportunity to become more engaged in this sort of discussion.
Thank you. Through the chair to the board, absolutely, we have thought about that, and that's why the capacity building workshop is an opportunity to provide further engagement and to also give that opportunity to people who are not involved either within the submissions or on the selection committee.
Okay, and so as many people as want to take place in the capacity building workshop can? There's no limit?
There's no limit, and when we have our information session on Friday through Connect CVRD, we will have an open forum. The intention is to be as transparent as possible and disseminate the same information to everyone. So there will be, we will record the information session. For those who are unable to attend, they can still view the video with the information.
That's great. Thanks very much.
Okay.
And Director Cole-Hamilton, you're next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I was going to echo what Vice Chair Hamir said about the Comox Youth Climate Council, and as the representative of the CVRD at the Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities Climate Leadership Group, I've been involved in working to plan a youth conference for later in March, and the chair of the Comox Youth Climate Council has been at meetings and has been very involved, very enthusiastic about it. And I think they're a new entity and they're looking for projects to take on. So she would particularly, I think, be a great person to contact. And given she's a youth and this is a public meeting, I'm not going to give her name or her information, but I'm wondering if I were to email that to Mr. Dyson, if you'd be able to forward that on to you. And if you spoke to her, I think that would be, that could be extremely productive in terms of finding youth to work with.
Madam Chair, yes, absolutely. Please pass on to me anything that is relevant, and we'll help to get it.
Yes, I'm also working with a couple of youth from Cumberland on a Cumberland Green New Deal, and I'm sure that they'd be eager to participate as well. So that's great. Any further comments, questions? Okay, we are on receipt of the report. And it's a vote of the full board. Anyone opposed to receipt? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried. Thank you very much. And we're on to item 6, grant status report. And that's for February 28th.
Move report.
Thank you, Grieve and Morin. And I'll pass it over to staff.
Thank you very much, Chair, and Kevin Duval will present the report and answer any of your questions.
Thank you very much, Russell. Through the chair to the directors, good afternoon. So I'll just be providing a brief summary of the report that's in your information package this afternoon, and also give you a bit of a perspective as to the amount of activity that's been undertaken this year over grant management. So in the report, it represents the last quarter of 2020 and also provides you a bit of a perspective as to some of the activity that took place in early January 2021. So in that last quarter, we had approved or had confidentiality conditions lifted on 4 applications totaling $255,000. Additionally, 6 grants were completed over that period, totaling $197,000. We then applied for a total of 6 grants over that period, totaling in excess of $3 million. Unfortunately, 3 of those applications were subsequently declined. And lastly, 2 additional applications were applied for in early 2021 for a total of just shy of $2.3 million. To give you a sense of just how busy the last year and a half or so has been, and a lot of that has been driven partly by some opportunities that came to be as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, but also just the breadth of project work being undertaken by the regional district and its partners. So like I say, we have a number of activities and projects and initiatives going on throughout our various services that we have reported on mostly through the various budget presentations over the last 6 or 7 weeks. But just kind of give you a sense of kind of what's been taking place this year over even just 3 years ago. Back in 2018, around this time when we brought forward a similar report to the board, we had approved or had outstanding grants totaling 10, a combination of federal and provincial grant funding for a total of about $10 million, with 3 grants completed over that period. Moving forward 3 years to February of this year, 6 grants were completed, but a total of 17 applications were either put forward or outstanding for a total of $70 million. So it just goes to show you the extensiveness of the number of grant applications we are continuing to manage throughout the regional district. Those grants, as things have progressed, have become much more extensive, complex, and often very non-routine. It's important to recognize that with each application, we have to really look at the nuances of those applications, be certainly ready to respond to the various terms and conditions that are outlined in those. And we do our absolute very best to maintain, communication throughout the organization and with those funders, and making sure we are meeting all of the full commitments associated with those grants. So at that, I'll kind of leave it there and certainly be willing to answer any question.
Thank you. Director Arbor.
Thanks. And before I make my comment, I'll make a precursor comment, which is I really appreciate the format of this report. I think the last couple of times I'd asked for including grants that have been denied and basically the full slate. And I'm really glad to see that there. And it's definitely not to, I think it aids all of us because there's so many projects. It aids us to understand what's tracking, what might have to get picked up, things like that. So thank you so much for the format. I would recommend that we keep that in the future for quarterly reports. And second, I see what this doesn't capture as well is some of the grant partnerships that we're doing, working with other nonprofits and other organizations where the CVRD may either be involved in a role of various level of partnerships. Sometimes it's just advisory. Sometimes we're actually providing a cover for the application. And I have to say that in my communities, that role is extremely appreciated for the local government to be able to put its weight behind some of the nonprofit projects as well is very valued and noticed. And that's not captured here. So all I'm saying is I realize fully what under our banner of community partnerships, how much has gone into grants. And my question perhaps to staff is, I know it's a stretch probably, and the ones that have been involved sometimes with the short timelines and everything is stretched staff capacity, but maybe for staff and the board is, if we're going to continue to be in that space, are we properly resourced? Are we on the ready? So far, I haven't seen any balls drop, but it's always a question whether we want to continue on that path of the last 3 years. I personally am supportive of that.
Through the chair to Director Arbor. No, I thank those comments. I mean, obviously, these many grants that we are kind of stick handling don't happen in isolation. We are working with a vast number of community partners to make a lot of these happen. We can certainly continue to work at kind of fine tuning this report and perhaps, try to give, the board a better sense of the types of partnerships that are continuing to be maintained. With respect to your question on resourcing, it's certainly something myself and our CFO, Mariah Fort, have been certainly talking a lot about. Obviously we have a very lean and mean finance staff, and we are, doing our absolute best to work with the various departments within the organization to make all of these things happen. And we will certainly be continuing to take a look at our resourcing and ensuring that we can continue to, put the best possible foot forward in this regard.
Thank you. Next we have Director Grieve.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, as the director for Area C, it's interesting to see that the Merville Hall is batting 1,000 with 2 grant applications denied. But my question is, somebody remind me what C2C is?
That's community to community forum.
Oh, okay. So that would be
what funded the KFN forum that we held last Friday.
Okay, it's just an acronym. Thank you very much.
And Director Hillian.
Thank you, Chair. I did want to ask, and first of all, thanks very much to staff for the report and all the excellent work that's gone into both the report and all behind the scenes with all the grant applications. I did want to ask, given that there was some controversy around the application for the Merville Hall Food Hub, if we were given any specifics as to why both those grants were denied.
Through the chair to Director Hillian, I don't have all of the specifics in front of it, but I can certainly tell you with respect to those particular grant funds, because they were somewhat COVID related, there was a significant number of applications submitted to those funding windows. And it literally came down to a prioritization of what the funders felt were the most worthy to support.
Okay, so there was no feedback given that reflected on our community cohesion or the quality of the grant or anything along those lines. Nothing like that came up that we're aware of.
Certainly not to my attention, but I can certainly follow up with those.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Yeah, and correct. And most granting programs offer the opportunity to provide feedback in the event that you can fine tune for a subsequent grant. Those are a little unusual in that I don't know that there will be repeats of those grant applications, but it's definitely the larger grants and the ongoing or reoccurring ones, we get lots of good feedback to modify for subsequent. And I think the recent newspaper article on that program is your best resource of all the money that was still received in the Comox Valley under that program, just not by our 2 applications.
Okay, I don't see any further questions. Just wanted to add my thanks because certainly the grants have been coming out pretty fast and furious this year with very tight timelines. So I know that staff have had their work cut out for them. So we appreciate all you've done and all that we've received. Thank you. And we're still on receipt, and it's a vote of the full board. Anyone opposed to receipt? Hearing and seeing none, that is carried. And we're on to bylaws and resolutions, first, second, and third readings. First, we have bylaw number 644, the Comox Valley Water Supply System Bulk Rates Bylaw.
Move first and second reading.
Second.
Thank you, Grieve and Cole-Hamilton. And it's a vote of areas ABC, Courtney and Comox. Anyone opposed to first and second reading? Hearing and seeing none, that is carried. We're on to third reading.
Move third.
Grieve and Morin, thank you. Anyone opposed to third reading? Seeing and hearing none, that is carried. Thank you. And we're on to bylaws for adoption. We're on to bylaw number 641, Comox Valley Regional District 2020 to 2024 Financial Plan and Capital Expenditure Bylaw. And this is for adoption. Director Hillian. And a second.
Second.
Director Cole-Hamilton, thank you. And this is a vote of the full board. Anyone opposed to adoption of the financial plan? Hearing and seeing none, that is carried. Thank you. And we're on to bylaw number 643, Comox Valley Emergency Program Extended Service Establishment Bylaw, also for adoption.
Move adoption.
Second.
Thank you, Grieve and Hamir. And it's a vote of the full board. Anyone opposed to adoption? Hearing and seeing none, that is carried. And I think that wraps us up for today.
Second.
Director Hillian and Hamir move termination. Anyone opposed? All right.